It's not every day that a whole country legalizes any kind of marijuana in any form, whether it's recreational, medicinal, whatever. Usually it doesn't all happen at once or whatever, but looks like Germany becomes the latest country to okay medical marijuana. I made a little list here. Let me grab my list. Everybody's been making lists lately online, on their social media, and I don't see a lot of important ones. Like this one's kind of important. Countries that have legalized some sort of medical marijuana. Now we have Australia, Canada, Colombia, Croatia, Germany, Italy, Chile, Czech Republic, Malta. Chile and Malta come with a little asterisk. They're sort of medicinal, and there's a couple others where it's completely illegal, but for some reason there's allowed medicinal growing, and probably for personal use, I would imagine. Czech Republic, Malta, Philippines, Poland, Puerto Rico, Turkey, Israel, and about half of the U.S., a little over half. We got like 28 states in D.C. But then we're talking about full legalization. Full weed is just not illegal. All right, you have Spain, and it comes with limits. It's basically just like a kind of a keep it to yourself policy. And then you have Uruguay, who just was recently noted as I don't know how long ago that was. It was the first country to legalize marijuana all the way through and through, the whole country. And then, of course, in the United States, you have about 8 states and the District of Columbia. And then when it comes to some sort of decriminalization, I'm not going to read the list right now. Maybe I will at the end of the video, but there's about 24 countries where marijuana has been decriminalized in, generally speaking, in very small amounts and in very limited situations. Do you not get anything more than a fine or, in some cases, some sort of a ticket? I don't know if it's actually like a criminal ticket. So here we go with Germany. This is from CNN, and you won't find me quoting CNN very often. But I felt like this was one of the most helpful articles I could find, unfortunately. And basically just because it kind of rounded out what I wanted to go over in this really quick video, I hope, but it probably won't be because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So an act to legalize the use of marijuana for medicinal purposes was passed by German parliamentarians. They voted unanimously in favor of the new bill, first approved by the country's cabinet in May of 2016. On Thursday, votes were unanimous in favor of the new cannabis as medicine law, which will come into effect on March 2017. People with multiple sclerosis and other severe illnesses will be able to obtain the drug legally with a prescription. Doctors will be able to prescribe marijuana or cannabis to patients for whom the drug could alleviate symptoms such as chronic pain or nausea, or who may see a positive effect on their disease progression, according to a statement from Germany's Federal Ministry of Health. Quote, critically ill people must be cared for in the best way possible, Federal Health Minister Herman Grohe said in a statement, adding that costs of using cannabis for medicinal purposes will be met by the health insurance companies of the critically ill if no other form of treatment is effective. Well, that's nice. The law was welcomed by both parties on both the left and the right. Germany will now create a state-regulated program to cultivate the crop for its medicinal use in the future and ensure its quality. Until then, plants will be imported. And if you remember, Australia did a similar measure last year. They legalized medical marijuana, or maybe earlier this year. Can't be too much earlier this year. But anyway, no, it was last year for sure. But the reports I've seen coming out of there now is that they're still having to import the lion's share of the medical marijuana to that country. So the Germany still has restrictions on marijuana as far as possession goes. For recreational use, it's one of those places that already had the really limited decriminalization of small amounts. So marijuana or cannabis is the most widely cultivated, produced, trafficked, and consumed drug worldwide, according to the World Drug Report, but its legality has been a topic of debate worldwide. And as you can see, the marijuana laws in this country are just a patchwork quilt of anything from go to prison for weed or to all the way to go to the store and buy it and hang out at the coffee shop smoking it. Soon, Colorado. This mirrors a global trend. In 2016, Canadian officials said they aim to introduce legislation in 2017 to legalize and regulate marijuana. Uruguay is the only other country to legalize cannabis. Ireland, Australia, Jamaica, and Germany approved measures in 2016 for its medicinal use, while Australia also granted permission for businesses to apply for licenses to manufacture or cultivate marijuana products for medicinal purposes and to conduct related research. Decisions are still pending in South Africa. They join more than 20 countries exploring the possible benefits of legalization. But as with the drug itself, the laws vary, as does the potency of control, and the world is waiting to learn what will work best. Quote, "We need a lot more data to inform the policies that are happening," said Ryan Vandry, associate professor of behavioral pharmacology at Johns Hopkins University in the United States. He has no stance on whether marijuana is good or bad, he said, but wishes policies around the drug had the data typically required when approving new therapy. It does, and yeah, you can have an opinion. All you have to do is look at something, maybe for a half an hour, look at it, or even less. Look at some studies, look at some things that we already know about it, and then make your decision. But when you're sitting here saying that you need more data, you're wrong. There's more data on marijuana's efficacy than any other drug we know about. Prove me wrong. I'm sick of this. You got to prove me wrong. There are a number of things that can happen when these policies change, he said, adding that social and cultural norms will ultimately define the real-life effect of these changes. Quote, "You can have vastly different impacts from the same change in policy," he said. All right, and this is CNN still. I couldn't believe this one. I couldn't believe any of this was in CNN. So I'm going to talk about Portugal for a minute. Hard to knock medicinal benefits. Portugal is a pioneer when it comes to drug reform laws, as the nation decriminalized the possession of all drugs, not just cannabis, for personal use in 2001. As a result, the country holds the greatest body of evidence about the impact such a change can have on policy. All drugs. And let's see. Quote, "We were a social laboratory," said Yao Castillo Branco Galileo. I hope I got that right. It sounded pretty good. Director General of General Directorate for Intervention on Addictive Behaviorals and Dependencies in Lisbon. But filtering out the specific impact in terms of cannabis is difficult. Quote, experiments are now taking place in other parts of the world," he said. Having trailed drug reform for more than a decade, Galeo believes that when it comes to defining what's needed for cannabis, there must be clear distinction between discussions for medicinal and recreational use to avoid confusion. Quote, "People mix medicinal and recreational use," he said. However, he acknowledges that the basis for medicinal benefits from marijuana, with a range of experts, including himself, recognize its use to alleviate chronic pain, muscle spasms, anxiety, and nausea and vomiting, most of which are linked to a variety of disorders, including multiple sclerosis and cancer treatment, which underlies Germany's rationale behind its new ruling. Well, let me just tell you this, though, is that the people just smoking the recreational marijuana are also reaping the benefits of medicinal marijuana, whether they like it or not. What medicinal benefits of marijuana, do you ask? Well, CNN has a little chart here. Their source is APPG Report on Drug Policy Reform. And we see the medical benefits of marijuana. And this, to me, is an incomplete list, but it is a complete head-to-toe kind of thing to show you that, you got different places in your body where you got different things going on, like your nerve system, your gastrointestinal system, your brain, and there's all kinds of things that, and these are major, major things here, like stroke, cancer, serious cancer, advanced cancer, Crohn's disease, PTSD, all kinds of, stuff that apparently they already know it's good for. So anyway, here's Galeo again. "I have no problems with medical marijuana. There are conditions I believe can benefit from cannabis use, and it's getting to the point where you can't deny the medicinal benefits of marijuana. Nobody in the room will look at you seriously ever again if you say marijuana is not medicine. The benefits attributed to two main components of cannabis: the psychoactive component THC, or the plant's extract CBD oil. The latter is linked to improving anxiety as well as epileptic seizures, proving to be life-saving for children with severe forms of epilepsy. CBD can stop the fits. It's quite remarkable, said Dr. Mark Barnes, professor of neurological rehabilitation at the University of Newcastle in the UK. Barnes recently wrote a report highlighting the medicinal value of marijuana for the all-party parliamentary group for drug policy reform. It's a mouthful, and this is in the UK. The drug is categorized as Schedule 1, defined as having no medicinal value. Clearly, this is wrong, said Barnes, whose research investigates the benefits to patients with brain injuries and multiple sclerosis. It ought to be legalized for medicinal use, he said, a thought most experts echo, as long as it's adequately informed and regulated. I think they're going, as usual, there's always this overabundance of caution when they talk about legalizing and regulating. Quote, if they're going to do it right, said Vandre, who wants laws to ensure that the best evidence is analyzed and that manufacture, potency, and labeling are also regulated, as with any drug. Now, the thing is cannabis has many different characteristics besides just the THC content and stuff like that. So, labeling is going to be a key thing, but the idea that they're pushing for something more standardized than what marijuana offers. Marijuana has many different strains and many different forms of it that you can consume it in, and there's a reason for that, and it's part of why it works so good, And there's a lot more to it than just the cannabidiol and the cannabinoids and THC. There's other things going on. Back to the article here. It's not medicine if you're just buying it from a street dealer, he said. We don't have any other medicines where concentration is different every time we buy it. It needs to be treated as medicine. See, now there's where he's wrong. There is medicines that have different concentrations just about every time you buy it. And besides that, it doesn't matter because cannabis, I think what we're doing with any doses that we're doing right now is just microdosing. If you're talking about doing real doses of cannabis that's really medicinal, you're talking about doses that make what we do right now and consider even recreational is a joke. So you're wrong, buddy. You can't measure cannabis in doses that make sense. Every cannabis medicine has its own different characteristic that makes it so that each individual person will require a different amount of that to get the right dose. So everything about this dosing thing is just completely bullshit. Vandre cites Canada and Uruguay as countries setting this example. Their new laws provide government-controlled sources of marijuana for anyone, not just those who need it for medicinal use. These two countries are the only ones that have nationally approved cannabis, he said. They provide a government-sourced product, which is true, but it doesn't really matter. All he's trying to get to is a point where the government or just a couple of companies are monopolized into the production of all the cannabis. We see where you're going with this, and we're not going there with you. That's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. And as soon as you say, okay, cannabis is medicine, cannabis is safe, it's a home-growing thing. Anybody can grow it. That's what we've fought for the whole time we've been fighting to legalize marijuana, or at least since Jack Herer brought it to everybody's attention, the medicinal properties of marijuana. Ever since then, that's all you talk about. That's all you hear about. And the closer you get to today, the more science we have to back it the fuck up. So shut the fuck up and let us have our medicine, man. It's going to take 5 to 10 years, really, to understand the impact these changes in law will have, he said, again stressing the key role cultures will play in defining this. The impact in Germany, for example, may differ from states in the U.S. I don't think so. I think what's going to happen is the more marijuana is out in the open and accepted as medicine, the more it's going to take over the pharmaceutical industry, and everybody's going to just accept it as medicine and recreation and safe. It's safe. All right, it's completely safe to use cannabis. He also added, it's not going to be easy to change the paradigm in some countries. What, the United States? Seems like we're the most stubborn fucking one. One thing is clear, the wheels are in motion and the marijuana movement is firmly underway. Quote, it is going to be very interesting to see what happens, Vandre said. Well, what would be very interesting is if people stopped acting like we're not going to let this marijuana thing happen unless we can control the whole fucking thing. And if we find one way to make a standard a little bit too high for someone that wants to grow their own marijuana, then we're going to kick their fucking door in and put them in jail still. So we're not for any of that. But what we are for is medicinal marijuana worldwide. We're for whole countries legalizing medicinal marijuana at the same time. Not just like, okay, part of the country is and then the other part ain't, and there's some right-wingers over there that don't like it, and well, whatever. You heard them in Germany, both parties were all for it. Because, you know, it's not really a partisan issue. It's only been made that way in America. If you ask anybody that's just a person in the population, it doesn't matter what their party affiliation is or what their political leanings are. When it comes to medical marijuana, pretty much everybody's in agreement on this one. It should be 100% legal worldwide, no questions asked. People should be able to grow their own medicine, and there should be a regulated medical marijuana industry around medical marijuana to further medical marijuana and make it advance in medicine, make the advances necessary. It should also be, made so that the research is unhinged. Right now, the research is basically under lock and key. It's whoever the DEA and FDA decides to fucking let them research it. And the DEA ain't going to let you research it unless the FDA's already getting kickbacks from you. And that's what we've seen already. So, good job, Germany. Good job, Australia. Good job, the other people on this list. And if you want to hang out for another minute, I'll give you this decriminalization list because it's kind of interesting, I guess. I'm just going to rip right through it. Argentina, Austria, Belgium, Bolivia, Cambodia, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Estonia, Greece, India, Jamaica, which should go on that medical list, and they're soon to legalize recreational, I believe. Luxembourg, Malta, Mexico, Moldova, Netherlands. Netherlands is just a decriminalized state. Now, local people, I don't know, I think it's legal. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. This is a wiki article from like 2015. Paraguay, Peru, Portugal, Russia, Slovenia, Switzerland, Ukraine, and number 24, U.S. Virgin Islands. So, and there still was a good chunk of the world that doesn't even have decriminalization. So, again, good job, Germany. Good job, more than half of the United States. And then we have Canada and that whole rest of the list of medicinal marijuana. We want the whole world to have their medicine back. The United Nations took it away. We want it back.